Welcome to Nightmare Fuel Stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the stories. Number the Westfield Anomaly. I've been a mall security guard for 15 years, mostly at thriving commercial centers full of teenagers and shoplifters. But 6 months ago, I took a job at Westfield Plaza, a decision that has destroyed everything I thought I knew about reality. Westfield Plaza sits on the outskirts of town, a sprawling two-story structure built in the early 90s. When I interviewed for the night shift position, the property management company was vague about why they needed security for a supposedly closed mall. The pay was double my previous job, so I didn't ask too many questions. Just make your rounds every 2 hours, my supervisor Marcus instructed during my orientation. Check all entry points, document any disturbances, and most importantly, don't enter any stores after midnight. I laughed at that last part. Why would I enter closed stores? Marcus didn't smile back. Just don't do it, Craig, and if you hear anything unusual, ignore it. The heating system makes strange noises. I should have recognized the warning signs that first night. The mall had officially closed 3 years ago when the anchor stores pulled out, but the building itself remained perfectly maintained. No dust on the benches, no dead plants in the planters. The fountains still ran, water cascading over polished stone. During my first rounds, I noticed something odd. All the storefronts still looked operational. Mannequins posed in window displays wearing current fashions. Restaurant menus featured items I recognized from recent advertising campaigns, yet the mall corridors remained empty, lights dimmed to night setting. Management company leases the spaces for storage and display purposes, Marcus had explained when I asked. Visual merchandising training, that sort of thing. That's why everything looks operational. It didn't explain the smell of fresh pretzels near the food court or why the movie theater marquee displayed current releases. By my third night, I began to notice subtle changes between my rounds. A mannequin that had been facing left was now turned slightly right. A book display at the bookstore had been rearranged. A half-eaten cookie appeared on a food court table that I'd just cleaned. I convinced myself it was my imagination, or perhaps day shift guards messing with me. That theory collapsed during my second week. I was making my 2 a.m. rounds when I heard it, soft, rhythmic music coming from the darkened JCPenney. Not the ambient mall music that played through the corridor speakers, but something distinctly coming from inside the store. I approached the entrance, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The security gate was partially raised, about a foot off the ground. I knelt down to look underneath and froze. A pair of women's shoes moved slowly past my view as if someone were walking through the department store. The shoes were attached to legs. I called out, "Hello, the mall is closed, you need to leave immediately." The footsteps stopped. The music continued, then a voice, soft, feminine, but somehow wrong, responded, "We're just browsing, the store is open." I stood up, heart pounding. "Ma'am, the mall closed years ago. How did you get in here?" Silence, then. "The mall never closes, silly. We're having a midnight sale." I radioed Marcus, who arrived 20 minutes later. By then, the music had stopped and the security gate was fully locked. "What exactly did you see?" he asked, his face unnaturally calm. "Someone was in JCPenney, a woman. She said they were having a midnight sale." Marcus sighed. "Craig, there's no one here. The gates are locked." "They've been locked for years, but I saw, it's the cameras," he interrupted, pointing to the security camera above the entrance. "Sometimes they glitch and project old footage into the monitoring system. You probably saw an old recording from when the mall was operational and your mind played tricks on you." His explanation made no sense, but I desperately wanted to believe it. The next few weeks followed a pattern. I'd make my rounds, notice small changes in the stores, occasionally hear voices or music, and Marcus would explain it away. Electronic glitches, wind through the ventilation system, my imagination. I might have accepted these explanations if not for what happened during my second month. I was in the security office, monitoring the cameras, when movement on one screen caught my eye. The feed showed the interior of Victoria's Secret, where a middle-aged woman was browsing through a rack of nightgowns. She moved with purpose, selecting items and draping them over her arm. I checked the timestamp, 3:17 a.m. I grabbed my radio and rushed to the store. The security gate was down, locked tight. Through the metal links, I could see the store was dark and empty. I returned to the security office, but the camera now showed an empty store. I rewound the footage, but there was nothing, just an empty store all night. "You're adjusting," Marcus said the next day when I told him. "The mind plays tricks during night shifts. You start to dream while you're awake." But I wasn't dreaming when, a week later, I saw a family of 4 eating at the food court at 2 a.m. They sat at a table near the shuttered Panda Express, consuming food from trays that shouldn't exist. The father wiped sauce from his young son's chin. The mother helped her daughter with a drink. They looked normal, except they were eating in an abandoned mall in the middle of the night. I approached them cautiously. Excuse me, the mall is closed. How did you get in here? They looked up at me, their expressions confused but not alarmed. The mall's open late for the holiday sale, the father said, gesturing toward a banner I hadn't noticed before, Midnight Madness Sale in bright red letters. What holiday? I asked, my mouth dry. They all laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally in the empty food court. Christmas, of course, the mother said, though it was April. When I looked back down at their food, I noticed it wasn't food at all. Their trays were filled with what looked like scraps of paper and plastic. The little boy was putting a piece of packaging in his mouth, chewing contentedly. I backed away. When I returned with Marcus 10 minutes later, the food court was empty. No family, no trays, no banner. I'm thinking about quitting, I told Marcus in the security office. I don't think this job is good for me. He studied me for a long moment. I can get you day shifts instead. The phenomena are less active during daylight hours. Phenomena. So you admit something strange is happening here. Marcus removed his glasses, rubbing his eyes. Craig, what I'm about to tell you violates company policy, but you deserve to know what you're dealing with. He leaned forward. Westfield Plaza exists in 2 states simultaneously. It's both abandoned and operational. The stores never actually closed, they just shifted. Shifted where, not where, when, or maybe how. Our physicists haven't quite figured it out yet. Physicists, what are you talking about? Marcus lowered his voice. The company that hired you isn't a property management firm. We're a research division of the Department of Energy. This mall is the site of what we call a temporal anomaly. I laughed. You're saying this mall is what? Haunted, existing in another dimension. We don't use those terms, but essentially, yes, something happened when they tried to close this place. The stores, the people, they didn't accept it. Now they exist in a perpetual state of operation, occasionally bleeding into our reality. That's insane, I said, but the events of the past months suddenly made a terrible kind of sense. The phenomena are strongest between midnight and 4 a.m., Marcus continued. That's why we need night security, not to keep people out, but to document the anomalies and ensure no one from our side gets confused about which reality they belong to. Has that happened? Marcus's expression darkened. Your predecessor, she started shopping. Shopping, we found her in the Gap, trying on clothes that weren't actually there. By the time we reached her, she was convinced she was a customer from 1997. She couldn't understand why we were trying to remove her from an open store. When we finally got her out of the building, she experienced some kind of psychotic break. She's still institutionalized. I should have quit that night. Instead, curiosity kept me there, that and the substantial hazard pay Marcus arranged. I began documenting everything I saw. The phantom shoppers, the merchandise that appeared and disappeared, the store employees who sometimes materialized behind counters, ready to assist customers who didn't exist. Or rather, customers who existed in another version of the mall. 3 months into the job, I witnessed a full-scale event, as Marcus called it. At exactly 1:13 a.m., every store in the mall simultaneously illuminated. The fountains bubbled with greater force. The ambient music grew louder, and people, hundreds of them, filled the corridors, shopping bags in hand, moving from store to store. I stood frozen in the center of the main concourse, watching as they passed around me like water around a stone. None seemed to notice me. When I reached out to touch a passing shopper, my hand passed through them as if they were made of fog. I followed a group of teenage girls into Forever 21. Inside, the store was fully staffed, brightly lit. A cashier rang up purchases, music played, but when I turned back toward the entrance, I could see the darkened corridor of the real mall just outside, empty and silent. I'd crossed some threshold. Hello, I called out. No one responded, no one looked at me. I was a ghost in their world, just as they were supposed to be in mine. I explored the store, moving through the phantom shoppers, studying their faces. They looked normal except for one detail I couldn't identify at first. Eventually, I realized what was bothering me. None of them blinked. Their eyes remained open, constantly fixed on whatever held their attention. When I tried to leave the store, I found I couldn't. The threshold I'd crossed was now impassable. Panic rose in my throat as I pushed against an invisible barrier at the store entrance. My radio crackled. Craig, Marcus's voice, distant and distorted. Craig, where are you? You're not showing up on the cameras. I raised the radio. I'm in Forever 21. I can see everything. The store is operational. There are people shopping. Get out of there now. The alarm in his voice terrified me. Move to the center of the store and close your eyes. Don't look at the merchandise. Don't look at the people. I can't get out. There's something blocking the entrance. That's because you're halfway between. Close your eyes, Craig. Think about the empty mall. Think about the real world. I did as instructed, squeezing my eyes shut, picturing the abandoned mall as I knew it. The empty corridors, the dimmed lights, the silence. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in a darkened Forever 21. The phantom shoppers were gone. The invisible barrier had vanished. I stumbled out into the corridor where Marcus waited, his face ashen. You crossed over, he said, not a question but an accusation. You broke protocol. I didn't mean to, I stammered. It just happened. 1 minute I was in our version, then suddenly, this is why we don't enter the stores after midnight, he hissed, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward the security office. The boundaries between realities are weakest inside the stores. That's where the anomaly is strongest. In the security office, Marcus made me sign additional non-disclosure agreements and showed me footage of myself during the event. On camera, I appeared to be standing completely still in the middle of an empty Forever 21 for 27 minutes, occasionally turning my head to look at things that weren't there. What happens if I had stayed? I asked. What happens if someone crosses over completely? Marcus hesitated. We don't know for certain. The leading theory is that they become part of that reality. They forget this one. They become one of the shoppers. With the non-blinking eyes, he looked at me sharply. You notice that? Yes, that's one of the identifying features. The entities in the alternate mall don't blink. They also don't cast shadows, though that's harder to notice. They're not human. They were once. We think they're echoes, quantum ghosts of the people who were here when the anomaly formed. They're caught in a loop, shopping forever in a mall that refuses to close. After that night, I became more careful but also more observant. I noticed patterns in the anomalies. The food court became active most often on Fridays. The department stores manifested shoppers primarily on weekends. The specialty shops, the jewelers, the high-end boutiques came alive most frequently on Tuesdays for reasons no one could explain. I also began to recognize certain shoppers who appeared repeatedly. A tall man in a red sweater who always visited the bookstore. A young woman with a pixie haircut who tried on the same pair of shoes at 9 West night after night. An elderly couple who sat on the same bench near the north entrance, holding hands, never speaking. They moved through their routines like actors hitting their marks, precise and predictable. I charted their appearances in a notebook, creating a map of their behaviors. Marcus encouraged this documentation while warning me not to become too fixated on individual entities. Don't name them, he cautioned. Don't start thinking of them as people. They're not anymore, but I couldn't help it. I began to feel a connection to these phantom shoppers, particularly the elderly couple. There was something peaceful about their nightly ritual, sitting together in comfortable silence. I called them Harold and Mabel in my notes, though I had no idea if those were their real names. 4 months into the job, I broke protocol again. I approached Harold and Mabel during one of their appearances. They sat on their usual bench, hands clasped, staring ahead with unblinking eyes. "Excuse me," I said, standing before them. "Can you hear me?" No response, no acknowledgement of my presence. "Do you know you're stuck in a loop?" I pressed. "Do you know the mall is closed?" Nothing. Then, just as I was about to walk away, Harold's head turned slightly toward me. His eyes remained fixed, unblinking, but his lips moved. "Help us." I stumbled backward. What did you say?" Mabel's head turned as well. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound emerged. Harold spoke again. We know we're trapped." How are you trapped?" "The mall won't let us leave. It needs us to stay open." A chill ran through me. "The mall needs you." Harold's hand tightened around Mabel's. "It feeds on us, on our memories, our time. As long as we shop, it exists." "How can I help you?" Both their heads swiveled forward again, resuming their original positions. Harold's voice came one last time, though his lips no longer moved. "Close the stores, really close them." I reported the interaction to Marcus, who immediately pulled me from night duty and ordered a psychological evaluation. He insisted that the entities couldn't communicate, that I was projecting my own thoughts onto them. "The human mind tries to create patterns and meaning," he explained. "You've been spending too much time observing them. You're anthropomorphizing quantum echoes." But I knew what I'd heard, and in the following weeks on my new day shift, I began researching the mall's history, looking for clues about Harold and Mabel and the nature of the anomaly. What I discovered disturbed me deeply. Westfield Plaza had been built on land purchased from a bankrupt mental institution. The developer had demolished the old asylum but kept one building as the mall's foundation, the morgue, where deceased patients had been processed before burial. More disturbing still, I found records of an incident just before the mall's closing 3 years ago. An elderly couple had died in the food court, apparent heart attacks, occurring within minutes of each other. Their names were Harold and Margaret Wilson. They had been shopping during a special midnight sale event. They weren't the only ones. I uncovered reports of 17 deaths at Westfield Plaza over its operational history, an unusually high number for a suburban mall. All the deaths had been attributed to natural causes. All had occurred during late-night shopping events. The mall had been feeding long before it officially closed. I brought my findings to Marcus, who listened with growing discomfort. "Even if your theory has merit," he said when I finished, "what do you propose? We can't close the stores any more than they already are. The anomaly prevents it. We need to remove what the mall is feeding on," I said, "the merchandise." The displays, everything that maintains the illusion of an operational mall. Marcus shook his head. The department won't authorize that. This anomaly is too valuable as a research subject. People are trapped in there. Quantum echoes, he corrected. Not people, not anymore. I realized then that Marcus and his department had no intention of resolving the anomaly, only studying it, which left me with one option. I returned that night off duty with a backpack full of gasoline cans. Security protocols gave me access to the building even when not on shift. I knew the camera blind spots, the patrol patterns of the night guard who had replaced me. My plan was simple: burn it all down. Fire would consume the merchandise, the displays, the physical anchors that kept the anomaly active. It would free the trapped souls and prevent the mall from claiming more victims. I started in the food court, dousing tables and counters. I moved to the department stores next, splashing gasoline on clothing racks and display cases. Throughout this process, I saw no phantom shoppers, heard no ethereal music. The anomaly remained dormant, as if holding its breath. I had just finished preparing the north corridor when I heard a voice behind me. "What are you doing, Craig?" I turned to find Marcus standing there, flanked by two men I didn't recognize. They wore suits despite the late hour. "Freeing them," I said, holding up my lighter. "The mall needs to close for real." Marcus took a step forward. "Put that down. You don't understand what you're interfering with." "I understand perfectly. This place is feeding on people's souls, their time, their energy. It's been doing it for years." "Yes," Marcus admitted, surprising me, "but it's contained here. If you destroy the physical structure, you won't free those entities. You'll release them and the anomaly itself into the wider world." One of the suited men spoke. "The mall isn't the source of the anomaly, Mr. Larson. It's a prison for it. The developer built this place specifically to contain what was already here, a temporal distortion that was consuming the entire town. The deaths," the other man added, "were unfortunate but necessary sacrifices to keep the anomaly fed and contained." I looked between them, the lighter still in my hand. "You've been feeding it people deliberately." Marcus at least had the decency to look ashamed. "Not directly, we just ensure the conditions are right for it to feed occasionally. A midnight sale here, a special event there. The anomaly requires human temporal energy or it grows unstable. And when the mall was set to close," I asked. "We couldn't let that happen," the first suited man said. "So we arranged for the management company to maintain the structure while appearing to close it officially. The anomaly needs the illusion of commerce to remain stable." I thought of Harold and Mabel, trapped in their eternal loop. "These are people's souls you're imprisoning." "A crude but essentially accurate assessment," the second man acknowledged. "And if you release them and the anomaly, it will require new vessels. Starting with everyone in this building." I looked down at the lighter in my hand, then at the gasoline-soaked corridor around us. One flick would start the inferno. Would it free the trapped souls or unleash something worse? Harold's words echoed in my mind. Close the stores, really close them. In that moment of hesitation, the suited men rushed me. The lighter fell from my hand as they tackled me to the ground. I felt a sharp prick in my neck, and darkness began to close in around my vision. The last thing I saw before losing consciousness was Marcus standing over me, his expression a mixture of pity and resignation. "I'm sorry, Craig, but the mall needs to stay open." I awoke in a hospital bed, restrained and diagnosed with a psychotic break. No one believed my story about Westfield Plaza. According to all records, I had never worked there. The mall had closed years ago and been demolished last year. My employment records showed I had worked at Lakeside Mall continuously for 15 years, with no 6-month gap, but I know the truth. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I can see Harold and Mabel sitting on their bench. I can hear their voices. "Help us." I will. Somehow I'll find Westfield Plaza again, in this reality or another. And I'll close those stores forever, whatever the cost. Because the most terrifying truth isn't that the mall contains an anomaly that feeds on human souls, it's that there might be others. I've started noticing things about the hospital where I'm being held, the way certain corridors seem to change between visits, the staff members who never blink, the sense that beyond certain doors lies not another ward but something else entirely, something vast and hungry and impossible. I think the anomaly has followed me, or perhaps I never left the mall at all. Either way, I know what I have to do. I have to close the stores, really close them, and I think I've finally figured out how.